The Peterson family reunion was supposed to be a celebration. It was the family's 50th annual gathering, held at a sprawling park with catered barbecue, games for the kids, and enough relatives to fill a small town. I'd been married to Ryan for 3 years, and this was my third reunion, but I'd never felt more like an outsider than the moment they demanded my dead mother's money. It started innocently enough. We were sitting at one of the picnic tables, Ryan, his parents, his siblings, and a handful of aunts and uncles, when his Aunt Martha brought up my recent loss. "We're so sorry about your mother, Sophia," she said, patting my hand. "Such a tragedy to lose her so young." "Thank you," I replied quietly. My mother had passed away 2 months earlier after a short battle with cancer. The grief was still raw, still catching me at unexpected moments. "I heard she left you something," Uncle Bill chimed in, his tone a little too interested for comfort. "That must be a comfort, at least." Ryan shifted beside me. We'd discussed keeping the inheritance private, but apparently, he hadn't kept his word. "She did," I said carefully. "Some family heirlooms and a small amount of money." "How much?" Ryan's sister, Kelly, asked bluntly. Kelly, Ryan's mother, Deb, scolded, but her eyes were just as curious. $6,500, Ryan answered for me, plus some jewelry and photo albums. "My name is Sophia, and I'm a 29-year-old elementary school teacher. When I met Ryan 4 years ago, he seemed like everything I wanted: stable, family-oriented, kind. His large, close-knit family was so different from my small one. It had just been me and my mother for most of my life after my father died when I was 10. I thought marrying into the Peterson clan would give me the big family I'd always dreamed of. Be careful what you wish for. $6,500 is a nice chunk of change," Uncle Bill said, leaning back in his chair. "What are you planning to do with it?" "I haven't decided yet," I said. "It's been hard to think about. It was my mother's life savings." "Well," Aunt Martha said, her voice taking on a tone I didn't like, "now that you're a Peterson, that money belongs to the family." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "She's right," Ryan's father, George, nodded sagely. "In this family, we share everything. When Kelly got her settlement from that car accident, she put it in the family pot. When cousin Jim got his bonus, it went to fixing grandma's roof. That's how we do things." "The family pot?" I repeated, looking at Ryan for support. He was studying his beer bottle intently. "We take care of each other," Deb explained, as if talking to one of my first graders. "Right now, your cousin-in-law Brittany needs help with her student loans, and Uncle Bill's truck needs a new transmission. Your inheritance would really help." "My mother's money would pay for Uncle Bill's truck?" I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds selfish," Kelly sniffed. "But yes, we're your real family now. Sophia, your mother is gone. We're all you have." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. My mother had been dead for 8 weeks, and they were calling her gone like she was a lost sock. "Ryan," I turned to my husband, pleading with my eyes, "can you help me explain?" He finally looked up, and the expression on his face made my heart sink. "They have a point, Soph. I mean, family helps family, and you are part of this family now. So I should just hand over my mother's life savings to pay for random relatives' expenses?" "Not random relatives," George said sternly. "Family, there's a difference." "Is there?" I stood up, my hands shaking, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're asking me to dishonor my mother's memory by giving away what she worked her whole life to leave me. "Dishonor?" Martha's voice rose. "How dare you? We're offering to include you, to make you truly one of us, and you throw it in our faces? You're not offering to include me, you're demanding my inheritance." "Same thing," Bill shrugged. "In this family, what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. If you can't understand that, maybe you're not really Peterson material." I looked around the table. More relatives had gathered, drawn by the raised voices. Not one face showed sympathy for me. They all had that same expectant look, like vultures circling a carcass. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You're right. I'm not Peterson material." I pulled off my wedding ring and set it on the picnic table with a soft clink. The gathering went silent. "Sophia," Ryan jumped up. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done the first time your family treated me like an ATM instead of a person." I grabbed my purse. "I'm leaving." "You can't just leave," Deb shrieked. "We're in the middle of a family reunion." "No," I said, backing away. "You're in the middle of trying to rob a grieving daughter. There's a difference." Ryan grabbed my arm. "Sophia, stop being dramatic. Put your ring back on and sit down. We can discuss this like adults. I yanked my arm free. Adults don't demand other people's inheritance. Adults don't gang up on someone at a family gathering. Adults don't tell a grieving person that their dead mother doesn't matter anymore. I never said that, Kelly protested. You said you're my real family now, as if my mother wasn't real, as if her love, her sacrifices, her life meant nothing because she's gone. That's not what we meant, George started. It's exactly what you meant. And Ryan? I looked at my soon-to-be ex-husband. The fact that you're standing with them instead of me says everything I need to know about our marriage. I walked away to a chorus of shouts and protests. Ryan followed me to the parking lot, alternating between apologies and accusations. You're overreacting. They didn't mean it like that. If you just explain about your mom. I shouldn't have to explain why I want to keep my dead mother's money, I shouted, finally losing my composure. The fact that you don't understand that means we have bigger problems than your greedy family. Greedy? They're not greedy, they're just communal. Communal, right. Tell me, Ryan, in 3 years of marriage, how many times has the family pot helped us? When we needed a new water heater? When my car broke down? When I was between jobs for 2 months? His silence was answer enough. But now that I have money, suddenly I need to contribute to the family pot. Funny how that works. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. My phone started ringing immediately, but I ignored it. I drove to my best friend Heather's house and collapsed on her couch in tears. They wanted your mother's money? Heather was incredulous. At a family reunion, 2 months after she died? They said I'm part of their family now, so I should share everything. That's not how family works. That's how cults work. She was right, I realized. The Peterson family's closeness that I'd once admired was actually a toxic codependency where boundaries were forbidden and individual assets were communal property, but only when it benefited the collective. I stayed with Heather that night. The next morning, I had 47 missed calls and dozens of texts. They ranged from Ryan's pleading to his mother's guilt trips to Uncle Bill's threats about what happens to people who betray family. I screenshot everything and made my first call to a divorce attorney. Let me get this straight. The lawyer, Jennifer, said, your husband's family demanded your inheritance at a public gathering, and your husband supported them? That's right. And it's only been 2 months since your mother passed? 8 weeks exactly. I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry you married into a family of vultures. The good news is, inheritance is separate property. They have no claim to it whatsoever. Actually, I said, there's something else, the $6,500. That wasn't the full inheritance. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Oh? My mother's house sold last week. After all the debts were paid and everything was settled, the total inheritance is $127,000. I only mentioned the $6,500 because that was her savings account. I didn't want to tell Ryan about the rest until I figured out what to do with it. Jennifer smiled. Smart woman. Let's keep it that way. Over the next 2 weeks, the Peterson family escalated their campaign. Ryan moved back in with his parents and they took turns calling my principal to tell her I was mentally unstable. Thankfully, she knew me well enough to ignore them. Showing up at my classroom during school hours, security removed them. Posting on social media about how I was stealing from family and disrespecting my husband. Having various relatives reach out with sob stories about why they needed my money. The social media posts backfired spectacularly. My mother's friends, who knew exactly how hard she'd worked and saved, came to my defense with a vengeance. Mrs. Chen, my mother's best friend, posted. Linda worked 2 jobs for 30 years to leave something for her daughter. She went without vacations, new clothes, and sometimes meals to save that money. Anyone who thinks they're entitled to it because they married into the family is delusional. The community rallied around me, my fellow teachers, my mother's co-workers from the hospital where she'd been a nurse. Even parents of my students reached out with support. The Peterson family found themselves on the receiving end of public shaming they hadn't expected. Then Ryan made a crucial mistake. He hired a lawyer to try to claim half the $6,500 in the divorce, arguing that inheritance received during marriage was marital property. His lawyer filed paperwork that listed the amount. Jennifer laughed when she saw it. He still doesn't know about the house? I never told him it sold. He knew Mom owned it, but he thought it was mortgaged to the hilt. He never asked about it after she died. Perfect. Let's keep it that way for now. The divorce proceedings were swift. Ryan couldn't afford a good lawyer. Turns out the Peterson family's communal approach to money didn't extend to helping with legal fees. His argument for the $6,500 fell apart quickly when Jennifer pointed out that inheritance is separate property in our state. During the final hearing, Ryan tried one last manipulation. Your Honor, my wife is hiding assets. I believe the inheritance is much more than $6,500. The judge looked at him tiredly. Do you have any proof of these additional assets? Well, no, but she's a teacher. How else could she afford such a good lawyer? Jennifer stood. My client's mother was a registered nurse for 30 years. She had excellent life insurance through her union, which paid for my services. Unless Mr. Peterson has actual evidence of hidden assets. This is merely speculation based on his own family's apparent financial difficulties. The judge agreed and granted the divorce. Ryan got nothing except the debt he'd accumulated buying toys he couldn't afford, boats, ATVs, gaming systems, all purchased with credit cards he'd opened without telling me. 6 months after that disastrous family reunion, I was living in my mother's house. I'd renovated it with part of the inheritance, creating a beautiful space that honored her memory while making it my own. The rest of the money was safely invested, growing for my future, maybe graduate school, maybe starting my own tutoring business, maybe just security. Ryan reached out once, about 4 months after the divorce was finalized. His family was in financial crisis. Uncle Bill's truck had completely died. Brittany had defaulted on her student loans. Kelly's husband had left her with significant debt. The family house, George and Deb's, was in foreclosure because they'd taken out a second mortgage to help various family members who never paid them back. Please, Sophia, Ryan begged over the phone. I know I screwed up, but they're going to lose everything. If you have any extra money from your mom. I have exactly $6,500 from my mother, I said calmly, which, according to your family, I should have put in the family pot. Tell me, Ryan, how much is in that pot now? It's different. It's not different, it's exactly the same. Your family created a system where everyone takes and no one saves, where boundaries are selfishness and keeping your own money is betrayal. That system was always going to collapse. So you won't help? I'll help the same way your family helped me when I needed it, which is to say, not at all. God, Sophia, when did you become so cold? I'm not cold, Ryan, I'm free from the manipulation, the guilt trips, the constant demands, free to honor my mother's memory and use her gift wisely, free to have boundaries without being called selfish. He hung up. I heard later through mutual acquaintances that the Peterson family had to sell the family home. They scattered to different states. The closeness they'd bragged about dissolving as soon as the money ran out. Ryan moved in with a cousin and was working 2 jobs to pay off his debts. The irony wasn't lost on me. They demanded my small inheritance because family shares everything, not knowing I had so much more. Their greed for $6,500 cost them access to someone who might have actually helped them if they'd just shown basic human decency to a grieving daughter. But they showed me who they were at that reunion. They showed me that I wasn't family, I was a resource. They showed me that my mother's death was just an opportunity to them. They showed me that Ryan would always choose them over me. Now I teach in the same classroom, but I come home to my mother's house, my house, where her pictures line the walls and her garden blooms in the backyard. I've started a scholarship fund in her name at the local nursing school. I volunteer at the hospital where she worked. I use her inheritance to honor her legacy, not to enable a toxic family's financial irresponsibility. Sometimes I think about that family reunion. How different my life would be if I'd just handed over the $6,500 to keep the peace. I'd probably still be married to Ryan, still being drained by his family's endless needs, still hiding the rest of my inheritance and feeling guilty about it. The money would be gone, spent on truck transmissions and student loans for people who barely knew my name, while my mother's memory was reduced to a dollar amount in the Peterson family pot. Instead, I stood up, I walked away. I chose to honor my mother over appeasing my husband's family, and in doing so, I discovered that the family I'd married into wasn't a family at all. It was a financial pyramid scheme dressed up as love. Real families don't demand your inheritance at reunions. Real families don't tell you your dead mother doesn't matter anymore. Real families support you in your grief, not exploit it for financial gain. The $6,500 they wanted so badly? It's part of a much larger inheritance now building my future. Just as my mother intended, the Peterson family got nothing except a harsh lesson in what happens when you mistake a person for a piggy bank. If you're watching this and facing similar pressure, remember, inheritance isn't just money, it's your loved one's final gift, their legacy, their last act of love. Anyone who tries to take that from you, spouse, in-laws, or anyone else, is showing you who they really are, believe them. And sometimes, the best family reunion is the one you walk away from. Thank you for watching my story. Your inheritance, like your boundaries, is yours to protect.